Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem, a postmortem of my Blitz game number 394. I was white here, played e4. My opponent played e5, the classical response. And we get the main line here, knight f3, knight c6 defending. And then I could play the Ruy Lopez. I play that often enough. But in this game I play bishop to c5. One of these days I suppose I should learn how to play d4, the Scotch. But I don't play that so much. So bishop c4, and my opponent responds with knight f6, which is known as the two knights defense, a very double-edged defense. And I guess since this is a short game, we can talk a little bit about these opening lines. If we back up, I think maybe the more solid way to reply here is bishop c5. But there's nothing wrong with knight to g5, with the knight to f6 there, but you do have to be careful. Because this allows the fried liver attack. You know, I was corrected once. I guess it's not the fried liver attack until and a couple moves later when I actually sacrifice the knight there. Then it's officially the fried liver attack. At this point, it's just one of the lines in the two knights defense. And black can play this with d5. This is still okay. E takes. And then right here, he needs to do something different. Probably the best move is knight a5, going after the bishop. So in this line, black has sacrificed a pawn, and but he has compensation in active pieces, and it's an interesting game with chances for both sides. I actually like this for white, in spite of the engine evaluation. I've played this, and you've seen me play it before. So this is kind of the main line of the two knights defense. But what my opponent played here, instead of knight to a5, the top choice. There's also b5, this tricky move. I might as well show this. We're going to have time. The game will end shortly. b5 is a very funny move because the best response to b5 is to put the bishop back on f1. So what happens if you take it, which is the natural thing to play? If you take the pawn, then queen takes, and you know, the bishop is a little bit embarrassed there. I can escape with bishop takes c6, and I guess get an okay game. But to play for an advantage, you actually retreat the bishop to f1 here, and then now the queen can capture here. Oh, it's funny, it says knight d4 is the main line. I always thought queen takes d5 was the main line. Or knight takes d5. Knight d4. Let's take a look at that. Knight d4 and then c3, kicking the knight. Oh yeah, I have seen this variation. This is dangerous. You got to kick this knight away. But you see that actually it's good for white. But it's tricky. The knight goes to f5, and you chase the knight all around. So that is a way that it's played. It's funny in the opening book, but it's not the best way to play it. Probably grabbing the pawn is the best way to play. And then you can develop the knight with tempo. The queen has to move. c5 looks like a good square to set up threats against f2, and now it's safe to grab the pawn because the bishop is guarded by the knight. So anyway, that's a very funny line, this this b5 line. So you have to be aware of those. Those are the top two choices: knight a5, b5. Also knight d4 immediately. If we can put that on the board, we'll make a little tutorial here on the two knights defense. All these variations can be met. When the knight comes here, once again, you want to kick it with c3. You don't want to allow the knight to stay there, and then usually it drops back to f5. And there's another one of those variations where you're just holding on to your pawn, and you come out pretty well. You just have to be careful not to allow these knights to hang around too long and cause trouble. So you kick them right away with c3. So that's how you play this. So knight takes d5. Allows the fried liver attack, which is knight takes f7, and this is one of those rare cases where you get to sacrifice a whole piece, and it's good. Now there are those lines we looked at recently in the King's Gambit series, where the Muzio Gambit or the Allgaier Gambit, where white sacrifices a pawn. Where white sacrifices a knight. And he gets some compensation, but really not enough. With correct play, black should be actually winning. But here you can sacrifice a knight and have a winning attack because he takes. You come out with check, And you're either getting your knight back right away, or he has to play the move king e6, which is what was played in the game. It's the only way to hold on the material and try and make some sense. But now, you've given up a knight, but you have your piece is out and his king is in the center. What kind of position is this? So my point is, if you're black and playing this, unless you're a glutton for punishment, there's no reason to allow the fried liver attack. You just sack the pawn instead and play knight a5 and go after the bishop. That's the way to play it. Okay, back to the game. So he played knight d5, and now the opening book isn't particularly informative here, but I take, and he takes back, and queen f3. This is just his standard moves, and he goes king e6 to hold on to it. Any other move, you just grab the knight, and you're just better, because you got your material back, and you're still attacking, and you're a pawn up, so it's all good. So at this point, he's defended the knight. You increase the pressure with knight c3. And now the top move here is knight to d4. And that's the most challenging move. And I don't quite believe this evaluation. Last time I looked at this, after knight d4, it was pretty much an even game. So you had enough compensation for the knight, but not more than that. But this chess engine, maybe I haven't looked at it with Stockfish recently. Stockfish seems pretty convinced that I'm just winning here. I mean, he has this threat of knight takes c. Oh, I know what the line is. Back up. The main line here is knight to b5, b4, knight to b4. With the threat and also defending the knight, so I can't take his knight. And the engine is convinced that queen e4 or castling is good. The old way of playing this was just playing the pawn to a3 and kicking the knight and forcing it to sacrifice itself. But this queen e4 move is not one I've seen before. Castling I've seen recommended. Let's look at queen e4, see if this is really a way to play it. He's just going to defend the knight with c6 and try and hold on to everything. Now you play a3. Okay, knight takes c2. You're going to give up the rook in the corner. King to... queen takes c2. You're defending that square with queen e4. That's the point of queen e4. Okay, so that's a new idea to me. So anyway, my opponent played knight ce7, which is not the most accurate way of playing, and now he's actually in big trouble. So I just castled here. It looks like d4. Castling and d4 are your two main replies. d4 to strip away the last pawn in the center, going after the king, and castling, preparing to bring a rook to the center. Either one is good. c6, defending the knight, and now d4. Yeah, so castling and d4 is the main idea. He plays queen e8 here, which is probably losing. So he can continue to play on. He needs to start moving his king to a safer position. So king d7, it says. King d7 gives back some material, but sometimes that's the best way to play it. Let's take a look at this. Yeah, the evaluation is changing a little bit. That's what I remember, that it was not a clear win. Nobody has ever analyzed this variation out to a clear win. So if black plays all the best moves, maybe he can hold on. So king d7. And then rook d1, getting the rook on the d file. And the game goes on. You're still trying to take advantage of his exposed king. You're still down a whole piece, and you still have enough compensation in the attack. So pretty interesting. Anyway, he played queen e8, so this is probably the losing move. I just put a rook on the e file. Very straightforward. I'm going to take that pawn. And his idea was to bring the queen over to f7 and try and force a trade of queens. But now, well, it looks like I have a lot of different moves. I chose rook takes e5, and he moved his king. King d7 or d6, it doesn't matter a whole lot. The problem is he left his queen hanging, so a short finish to the game, and he resigned here. I didn't even notice in the game until after he resigned that his queen was hanging, but if I had paused to look at this, I was still looking at the exchange here, which wins material as well, but winning the queen, of course, is much superior. So my opponent resigned at this point, and I hope you guys enjoyed this short video. See you again soon. Bye.